I purchased my dream home and invited my family to a housewarming nobody showed. They all went to check out my sister's new car instead. Then as I flipped on the lights, my phone blew up with a call from my dad. "We need to talk." Now, have you ever felt a betrayal so deep it shakes the very foundation of who you are, leaving you wondering if you ever truly knew the people you called family? Imagine pouring 10 years of your life, every ounce of effort and sacrifice, into building a dream, finally making it a reality, only for your own blood to publicly choose a malicious lie over your triumph. That day, I wasn't just left alone in my beautiful new home. I was told my very existence, my accomplishments, were a problem. What the hell happened next? You're about to find out. My name is Shirley, and for 32 years, I felt like a supporting character in my own life. Growing up as the oldest of 3, I always carried the unspoken weight of expectation. My parents, Thomas and Margaret, raised us in a modest suburban home in Minnesota. They were hard workers, always providing, but emotional warmth. Especially for me, that wasn't their strong suit. Then there was Ashley. From the moment she was born, with her blonde curls and bright blue eyes, she was the undisputed princess of the family. While I got practical gifts like books, Ashley received beautiful dresses and dolls. I was told to be responsible. Ashley was allowed to be carefree. "Shirley, why can't you be more like your sister?" That refrain echoed through my childhood. Ashley knows how to make people smile. "You're always so serious." These comparisons, they weren't just words, they were tiny cuts that deepened into a chasm between us. I threw myself into academics, thinking, if I can't win their affection with my personality, maybe I can make them proud with achievement. I joined everything, volunteered everywhere, maintained a perfect GPA, and eventually, I earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university. But even then, my accomplishments felt overshadowed. I'll never forget my college graduation day. 4 years of relentless work, I graduated summa cum laude with a double major. As I walked across that stage, diploma in hand, I searched for my family in the crowd. They were there, yes, but distracted. Later, at dinner, I expected something. But the conversation quickly turned to Ashley's new boyfriend and the party he'd invited her to. "Can you believe Ashley got invited to the Andersons' party?" my mother gushed. "They're one of the wealthiest families in the area." I sat there, my hard-earned diploma folder beside me, feeling utterly invisible. Only my younger brother, Dylan, who was 16 then, caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. He always seemed to see things our parents missed. After graduation, I moved to Chicago and secured a position at a growing marketing firm. I worked overtime, took on extra projects, and slowly climbed that corporate ladder. Every promotion was the result of countless late nights, sacrificed weekends. I lived frugally, sharing an apartment with 2 roommates. Even as my salary grew, every extra dollar went into my savings account, dedicated to one singular focus: owning my own home. My family, they just didn't get it. "Why marketing?" my father would ask during holiday visits. "You could have gone to law school with your grades." Meanwhile, Ashley dropped out of community college after 2 semesters, but landed a job at a boutique through a friend of our mother's. Somehow, that was celebrated as a smart networking move. Those 10 years in Chicago, I built a life for myself. I made friends who valued me for me, not for who they wanted me to be. I found mentors who saw my potential. The dream of owning my own home became a symbol. It represented stability, accomplishment, a space where I could finally belong without conditions. A sanctuary that was entirely mine. When I finally reached my savings goal at 32, a sense of pride washed over me, unlike anything I'd ever experienced. This was my achievement, something I'd done entirely on my own. I was ready to find my home. The journey took 3 months, countless weekends with my realtor, Judith. I had a vision, a craftsman-style house, a small yard for gardening, a big kitchen, and a front porch where I could sit with a glass of wine. Then I found it, a 1920s craftsman bungalow in a charming neighborhood. It needed work, sure. The kitchen was outdated, the floors scuffed, but the bones were solid. High ceilings, original crown molding, built-in bookshelves, and those iconic windows that let in streams of golden light. The moment I walked through the door, I knew. This was it. I could already picture everything. That evening, I made an offer. It was accepted. The closing process was a blur of paperwork and anxiety. But finally, on a warm Tuesday in July, I sat at that table, signing my name until my wrist ached. When the keys were handed to me, I clutched them so tightly they left imprints on my palm. "Congratulations," Judith said, hugging me. "You're officially a homeowner." I drove straight to my house, stood on the front walkway, taking it all in. With shaking hands, I unlocked the door. The house was empty, my footsteps echoing, but it was already filled with possibility. That night, I slept on an air mattress, too excited to wait. The next morning, I began the transformation. For 2 months, I poured my heart and soul into renovations. I took vacation time to paint every room myself, choosing colors that made me feel peaceful and energized. I refinished the hardwood floors, a back-breaking job, but the natural grain of the oak that emerged was worth it. The kitchen was my biggest project. I saved money by keeping the original cabinets, but I painted them crisp white, installed new hardware, new countertops, a farmhouse sink. It completely transformed the space. I watched countless YouTube tutorials, making endless trips to the hardware store. As September approached, the house was finally ready. Every room reflected my personality, my taste. This was the first space that was truly mine, created by my vision and hard work. A housewarming party seemed like the perfect way to celebrate. I wanted to share my joy, to officially mark this new chapter. I created beautiful invitations, handwriting each one, and for my family, I included old photos, expressing how much their presence would mean. My mother called immediately. "Shirley, this invitation is lovely. We wouldn't miss it for the world. Dad and I are so proud of you for buying your own home." Ashley texted, "OMG, sis. Can't wait to see your new place. By the way, I just bought a new car. Nothing fancy like your house, but I'm excited, LOL." Dylan called, genuinely interested in the renovations. He promised a special housewarming gift. I went to bed the night before the party feeling a profound sense of completion. For once, I would be the center of attention for something positive. For once, my family would see what I had accomplished. Little did I know, the next day would bring one of the most painful disappointments of my life. I woke at 6 a.m., too excited to sleep. Sunlight streamed through my curtains. Today was the day my house would truly become a home, filled with laughter and the people I loved most. I spent the early hours putting final touches on the food: spinach and feta pinwheels, a charcuterie board, my special mini lemon tarts. By 9:30, my counters were covered. At 10, my friend Melissa and her boyfriend, Jake, arrived to help. "This place is gorgeous, Shirley," Melissa exclaimed, spinning in my living room. "I can't believe how much work you did yourself." By noon, everything was perfect. The house gleamed, soft music played, food was ready. My first guests arrived at 2:45, coworkers, bearing gifts and wide smiles. By 3:15, about 20 people had arrived, filling my home with the conversation and energy I had dreamed about. But my family? No sign. At 3:30, I checked my phone. No messages. I sent a quick text to my mother. "Hey, are you on your way? We've started already." More guests arrived. My neighbor, my college roommate, friends from my yoga class, book club, hiking group, they all came. By 4 p.m., the party was in full swing, but the absence of my family had become a glaring hole. I called my mother, no answer. My father, straight to voicemail. I texted Dylan, "Are you guys coming? Is everything okay?" I maintained a smile, refilling drinks, but inside, anxiety was a cold knot. Had there been an accident? Someone sick? It was unlike them not to call. At 4:30, my phone buzzed. A text from my friend Kelly, who hadn't been able to attend. "Just saw your family at Hamilton Auto. Your sister was taking pictures next to a red convertible with a big bow on it. Thought they were coming to your party after." I stared at the message, my hands suddenly cold. They hadn't forgotten. They had chosen not to come. They had all gone to the car dealership to celebrate Ashley's new car purchase instead of my housewarming. The realization hit me like a physical blow. After all the years of working, all the meticulous planning, the special invitations, they had still chosen Ashley over me. Again. "Is everything okay?" Melissa asked, noticing my face. I forced a smile. "Everything's fine. Just checking messages." But everything was not fine. As I moved through my party, accepting compliments on my home, a growing hollowness spread inside me. The people who should have been the most proud weren't even here. By 7 p.m., guests began to leave. By 8:30, the last one was gone. I closed the door and stood in my entryway, surrounded by the wreckage of what should have been a perfect day. Gift bags sat unclaimed. The special place, settings I'd made for my family remained untouched. The family photo album lay closed on the coffee table. I moved through the rooms mechanically, turning off lights, gathering plates. My mind replayed Kelly's text over and over. The image of my entire family gathered around Ashley's new car while my carefully prepared party went on without them burned in my thoughts. By 9 p.m., the house was clean again, but the joy I'd felt that morning had evaporated. I sank onto my living room sofa, finally allowing the tears I'd been holding back all evening to fall. This house, which represented such achievement and pride, suddenly felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with departed guests. I reached for a tissue just as my phone lit up. Dad calling. My heart jumped. Perhaps there was an explanation. A misunderstanding. I answered, my voice carefully controlled. Hello. Shirley. My father's voice was cold and sharp, a tone I'd rarely heard directed at me. We need to talk now. I sat up straighter, wiping away tears. An apology? An explanation? This was not it. The accusation in his tone was unmistakable. Somehow, in their absence, I had become the villain. About what? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. About what you did to your sister, he replied, and my world tilted even further off its axis. What I did to Ashley, I repeated, disbelief washing over me. Dad, I didn't do anything to her. I haven't even seen her in weeks. Don't play innocent with me, Shirley, my father said, his voice tight with anger. You know exactly what you did. I stood up, pacing my beautiful living room. Dad, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. What I do know is that my entire family missed my housewarming party today without so much as a text message to explain why. There was a pause. Then his voice returned, somehow even colder. Your mother is very upset right now. Ashley told us you changed the date of your party deliberately to conflict with her car purchase appointment. She's been saving for that car for months, and you knew how important today was for her. The accusation was so absurd that for a moment I couldn't respond. I had sent invitations 2 weeks ago. The date had been set long before I had any idea Ashley was buying a car. That is absolutely not true. I finally managed to say, I set this date weeks ago. The invitations were mailed 2 weeks ago. Ashley knew the date perfectly well. She showed us the text message you sent her yesterday, changing the time from 6 p.m. to 3 p.m., knowing she had her appointment at the dealership at 3. My father countered. Why would you do that, Shirley? Are you that jealous of your sister that you needed to ruin her special day? My mind raced. I had texted Ashley yesterday, but only to confirm she was coming, not to change any times. The invitation had always specified 3 p.m. Dad, that is not what happened. I never changed the time. Check your own invitation. It always said 3 p.m. We don't have the invitation anymore, he replied dismissively. And that's beside the point. The point is that your sister needed her family support today for her first major achievement. First major achievement. The word stung like a slap. What about my college graduation? My promotions? This house that I had saved for 10 years to buy? None of those counted as achievements in his eyes. My invitation said 3 p.m. from the beginning, I said again, fighting to keep my voice steady. And even if there was confusion about the time, why did none of you call me? Why did you all just not show up at all? Because your mother and I decided we needed to support Ashley. She was in tears thinking about how you were trying to overshadow her again. Again, as if my entire life hadn't been spent in her shadow. Dad, I bought a house with my own money. After working for 10 years and saving everything I could, I wanted to share that with my family. How is that overshadowing Ashley buying a car? It's not about the house or the car, Shirley. It's about your attitude. You have always been competitive with your sister, always trying to one-up her. The injustice of his statement left me breathless. Every memory of standing quietly while Ashley received praise for minimal effort. Every time I had swallowed my disappointment when my achievements were overlooked. Every instance of biting my tongue when comparisons were made. All of it rushed through my mind. I need you to apologize to your sister, my father continued. She's very hurt by what you did. Something broke inside me then. A lifetime of accommodation, of accepting scraps of attention, of being the responsible one who never complained. I will not apologize for something I did not do, I said firmly. Ashley lied to you. I never changed the time of my party. And the fact that none of you bothered to check with me, that you all just assumed I was in the wrong without question, says everything about our family dynamic. Don't talk to me about family dynamics, young lady. My father's voice rose. We raised you better than this. Your mother is in tears over your behavior. My behavior? I was the one who was left waiting for my family at my housewarming, watching the door while everyone else enjoyed the party. I spent weeks planning. You need to think about someone other than yourself for once, Shirley. The unfairness of that statement was the final straw. Tears streamed down my face now, but they were tears of anger as much as hurt. I have spent my entire life thinking about everyone else's, Dad. I've been the responsible one, the one who never caused problems, the one who worked hard and did everything right. And still Ashley always comes first, always. That's not true and you know it, he said, but there was a slight hesitation in his voice now. It is true, and deep down you know it too. I'm going to hang up now, because this conversation is not productive. When you and Mom are ready to hear my side of things, you can call me back. Shirley, don't you dare hang up on me. I ended the call, my hand shaking. For a long moment, I stood in my living room, surrounded by the home I had created, feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. My phone immediately began ringing again. This time, it was my mother. I took a deep breath and answered. Mom, I can't talk right now. Shirley, how could you do this to your sister? Her voice was thick with tears. You know how sensitive she is. And you know how much this car meant to her. Mom, I didn't do anything to Ashley. I sent invitations 2 weeks ago for a 3 p.m. party. I never changed the time. She showed us your text, Shirley. Why are you lying? I am not lying, Mom. Ashley lied. And the fact that you immediately believe her over me hurts more than I can say. My mother's voice hardened. You have always been jealous of the attention Ashley gets. You need to grow up and stop these childish games. The conversation continued in circles, my mother refusing to consider that Ashley might have lied. By the time I hung up, I felt completely drained. Out of curiosity and mounting anger, I scrolled back through my text messages with Ashley. There it was, our exchange from yesterday. Hey Ash, just confirming you guys are coming tomorrow at 3. Can't wait to show you the house. Ashley's reply, totally. Unless something comes up, LOL. But should be there. Nothing about changing times. Nothing that could be misinterpreted. Then I noticed something strange. There were screenshots in our conversation from earlier today. Screenshots I had never sent. They showed a doctor conversation where I supposedly told Ashley the party had been moved to 3 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. Ashley had fabricated evidence. She had sent it to herself from my number in our text chain. I sat down heavily on my sofa, the full weight of the manipulation hitting me. My sister had deliberately created a situation where my family would miss my housewarming, then made it appear to be my fault. The level of calculation required was staggering. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. Hope your party was fun. Sorry we couldn't make it, but my new car is amazing. Maybe next time don't try to make everything about you. Just saying. The casual cruelty of the message, after what she had done, left me breathless. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or thoughtlessness. This was deliberate sabotage. I turned off my phone and curled up on my sofa, surrounded by the beautiful home that now felt tainted by this painful revelation. The family I had hoped would finally see my worth had shown me exactly how little they valued me. And my sister, my own sister, had orchestrated all of it. That night, alone in my dream house, I cried myself to sleep. After a restless night, I woke up with a clarity I had never experienced before. The hurt and shock had crystallized into a steely determination. I was not going to let Ashley's lies stand unchallenged. For once in my life, I was going to confront the dynamics that had shaped our family for decades. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing an outfit that made me feel confident and strong. I wanted to face Ashley not as the perpetually overshadowed older sister, but as the accomplished woman I had become. I drove the 30 minutes to Ashley's apartment, rehearsing what I would say. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth. When she opened the door, her surprise was evident. "Shirley, what are you doing here?" She was still in pajamas despite it being nearly 11 a.m. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. "May I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. Her apartment was stylishly decorated but cluttered with shopping bags. "Is this about yesterday?" she asked defensively, crossing her arms. "Because I already told Mom and Dad what happened." I took out my phone and pulled up our text conversation. "Yes, it is about yesterday. And about these." I showed her the screenshots she had inserted. Screenshots of a conversation that never happened. Screenshots you fabricated to make it look like I changed the time of my party to conflict with your car appointment. Ashley's expression flickered between surprise and defiance. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ashley, stop. The evidence is right here. You created fake messages and then sent them to yourself in our conversation thread. What I can't figure out is why. Why would you go to such lengths to make sure our family missed my housewarming?" She looked away, a flush creeping up her neck. "You always have to be the center of attention, don't you? Perfect Shirley with her perfect career, and now her perfect house. Meanwhile, I finally do something worth celebrating, and no one would care because they'd all be too busy applauding you." The bitterness in her voice was startling. "Is that really how you see me? As someone who steals your spotlight, Ashley? My entire life, I have stood in the background while you received praise and attention for every little thing." "That's such a lie," she exploded. "Mom and Dad always talked about how smart you were, how responsible, how successful. Why can't you be more like your sister? Shirley would never do that. Look at Shirley's grades, her job, her savings. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up hearing that?" I stared at her in disbelief. "Are we from the same family? Because in my experience it was always, Ashley is so charming. Ashley is so pretty. Ashley makes friends so easily. Every accomplishment I ever had was minimized while you were celebrated for the smallest things." We stood there, two grown women with completely opposite perspectives on our shared childhood. It was as if we had grown up in parallel universes. "You were always the favorite," Ashley insisted, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes now. "Then why do they all choose to go see your new car instead of coming to my housewarming? If I'm the favorite, explain that to me." She didn't have an answer. Instead, she changed tactics. "It's just a house, Shirley. People buy houses all the time. It's not that big a deal." The dismissal of my greatest achievement stung, but I refused to be derailed. "This is not about the house or the car. This is about you deliberately lying to our family to manipulate them. You created false evidence to make me look bad. That goes beyond sibling rivalry, Ashley. That is calculated and cruel. They would have come to your party eventually," she said, her voice smaller now. "I just wanted them to see my car first, when it still had the big bow on it and everything. They could have done both, but they didn't because you told them I had intentionally changed the time to hurt you. You made me the villain in this story when all I wanted was to share something important with my family." The sound of a key in the lock interrupted us. The door opened to reveal our parents, both looking surprised to see me. "Shirley, what are you doing here?" my mother asked, glancing between Ashley and me with concern. "I came to talk to Ashley about what really happened yesterday," I said, turning to face them. "Did you bring the invitation I sent you? I'd like to show you that it always said 3 p.m. My father's expression hardened. "We came to check on your sister because she was upset last night. We don't need to rehash this whole situation." "Actually, we do," I insisted, a newfound courage in my voice. "Because Ashley lied to you. She created fake text messages to make it look like I changed the time of my party. The invitation always said 3 p.m., and she knew that." "Shirley, that's enough," my mother said sharply. "Stop trying to blame your sister. Look!" I held out my phone, showing them the conversation with the obviously inserted screenshots. "This is our actual text exchange. Ashley added these screenshots herself. They don't even match the format of our other messages." My father barely glanced at the phone. "I don't know what you're trying to prove here, Shirley, but attacking your sister is not the way to handle this." "I am not attacking her. I am showing you the truth." My voice rose in frustration. "Why is it so hard for you to consider that Ashley might be lying? Why do you automatically assume I'm in the wrong?" Because you have always been jealous of your sister, my mother said, moving to put an arm around Ashley, who had begun to cry. Ever since she was little, you resented the attention she gets. The injustice of the statement, after everything that had happened, broke something in me. That is not true. That has never been true. I have spent my entire life trying to make you proud, working harder than anyone I know to achieve the things I have, and still nothing I do is ever enough for you to actually see me. We see you just fine, Shirley, my father said coldly. We see someone who can't be happy for her sister's accomplishments without making it about herself. Her accomplishments? I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. Buying a car with money our parents gave her is an accomplishment, but me saving for 10 years to buy a house on my own is not worth showing up for. It's not about the car or the house, my father said, echoing my earlier words to Ashley. It's about your attitude. My attitude. I was nearly shouting now. My attitude has always been to work hard, never complain, and support this family, even when you all continuously overlook me in favor of Ashley. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of being the only one who sees this dynamic for what it is. Ashley was fully crying now, head buried in our mother's shoulder. The familiar sight of my parents comforting her while I stood alone sent a wave of painful recognition through me. I think you should leave, my father said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Your sister is upset enough without you making wild accusations. They are not wild accusations, I said quietly, my anger giving way to a deep sadness. They are the truth, and the fact that none of you can even consider that tells me everything I need to know about my place in this family. I walked to the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. For the record, the invitation always said 3 p.m. I never changed the time. I wanted all of you there because, despite everything, you are my family, and I thought my first home was something worth celebrating together. I guess I was wrong. As I left the apartment, I heard my mother's soothing words to Ashley. It's okay, sweetheart. Shirley has always had a flair for drama. I drove home in a state of numb disbelief. The confrontation had gone even worse than I had anticipated. Not only had they refused to believe me, but they had reinforced the very dynamic I was trying to challenge. In their eyes, I would always be the problem, the jealous sister, the one with the attitude. As I pulled into the driveway of my house, my beautiful house that I had worked so hard for, I made a decision. I could not change my family, or make them see the truth they were determined to ignore. But I could change how much power I gave them over my happiness. Starting today, I would build a life that did not revolve around seeking their approval or recognition. Starting today, I would define my own worth. The next 3 months passed without a single word from my family. No calls, no texts, no emails. After that confrontation, it was as if an unspoken agreement had been made to sever contact. At first, the silence was painful, a constant reminder of rejection that followed me through my days. But gradually, something unexpected happened. I began to breathe more freely, without the weight of my family's expectations and judgments, without the constant striving for recognition that would never come. I found space to rediscover who I was. Apart from the family dynamics that had defined me for so long, I threw myself into making my house truly mine. I planted a garden in the backyard, something I'd always wanted to do. Every weekend, I spent hours with my hands in the soil, planting flowers and vegetables. There was something profoundly healing about nurturing things and watching them grow. Inside, I continued small improvement projects. I installed bookshelves in the spare bedroom, creating the home library I dreamed of. I refinished an old desk, turning it into a beautiful workspace by the front window. But the most significant changes were happening within me. Without the constant background noise of family drama and disappointment, I began to hear my own voice more clearly. What did I want? What brought me joy? Who was I when I wasn't trying to prove my worth to people who couldn't see it? The friends who had shown up for my housewarming party became an essential part of this journey. They were the family I had chosen, people who valued me for exactly who I was. Melissa and I started a weekly dinner tradition. My colleague James invited me to his community garden group. My neighbor Samantha introduced me to her book club. One rainy Tuesday evening, I attended my first meeting of a support group for people with difficult family relationships. I'd been hesitant, unsure if my situation was bad enough, But from the moment I sat down in that circle of strangers, I felt a recognition that was both painful and profoundly comforting. "I always thought I was alone in this," said a woman named Jessica. "I thought I was the only one whose family made her feel invisible." Her words struck a chord so deep within me that tears sprang to my eyes. As others shared their stories of narcissistic parents, golden child siblings, years of gaslighting, and emotional manipulation, I began to see my own experience reflected in theirs. What had happened to me wasn't unique, and it had names: scapegoating, favoritism, emotional neglect. Jessica and I connected immediately. She was 36, estranged from her family for nearly 5 years. Over coffee after the meeting, she shared her journey. "The hardest part was accepting that they might never change," she told me, her eyes kind but unflinching. "I kept thinking, if I just explained it better, if I just found the right words, they would finally understand. It took me years of therapy to realize that they don't want to understand because their version of reality works for them." Jessica became both friend and mentor. She recommended books that helped me understand family systems and generational patterns. She listened without judgment when I oscillated between anger and grief. And most importantly, she showed me through her own example that it was possible to build a fulfilling life without the validation I had sought for so long. At her suggestion, I began seeing a therapist named Dr. Natalie Rivera. In our first session, I poured out the story of the housewarming party and its aftermath, expecting her to be shocked. Instead, she nodded with understanding. "What you are describing is a classic family system with rigid roles," she explained. "Your sister is what we call the golden child, and you have been placed in the role of the scapegoat. These roles often have very little to do with who you actually are as people, and much more to do with your parents' own unresolved issues and needs." Over the following weeks, Dr. Rivera helped me unpack a lifetime of interactions. I began to see how I had internalized the message that I was only valuable for what I achieved, that love was conditional on performance. I realized how much of my life had been spent seeking approval that was strategically withheld. "The hardest thing to accept," Dr. Rivera told me during one particularly difficult session, "is that you cannot make people give you what they do not have to give. Your parents, for whatever reason, are not capable of seeing you clearly or loving you unconditionally. That is not a reflection of your worth. It is a limitation in them." Those words were a turning point for me. I had spent 32 years trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I had contorted myself into the perfect daughter, student, employee, sister. Always responsible, never demanding, constantly achieving, in the hope that eventually it would be enough. But it never had been, and it never would be, because the problem was not with me. As this realization settled into my bones, I began to change in ways both subtle and profound. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. I bought clothes in colors I loved rather than what was practical. I took a pottery class simply because it sounded fun, with no concern for whether I would be good at it. At work, I applied for a creative director position that I would have previously considered beyond my reach. To my surprise, I got it. My new role allowed me to showcase skills I had always downplayed: my creativity, my ability to inspire a team, my intuitive understanding of what would resonate with an audience. "You seem different," my colleague Maria commented after a presentation where I had confidently defended an unconventional campaign concept. "More, I don't know, present. Like you are fully inhabiting your space." I was beginning to recognize my own value outside of my family's narrow definition. And as I did, other people saw it too. 6 weeks into my new arrangement, I received a text from an unknown number. "Hey sis, it's Dylan. Got a new phone. Can we talk? Not about family stuff. Just want to see how you're doing." My younger brother had always been the quiet one, often lost in the dynamic between Ashley and me. We'd never been particularly close, but there had always been an unspoken understanding. I agreed to meet him for coffee the following Saturday. Dylan looked older than his 24 years when he walked into the cafe, his shoulders slightly hunched. When he saw me, his face lit up with a genuine smile. "Your hair looks different," he said as he sat down across from me. "It suits you." I had cut my long hair into a shoulder-length bob, something I'd wanted to do for years but had hesitated over, hearing my mother's voice in my head saying long hair was more feminine. It was a small act of reclamation, but it felt significant. We talked about neutral topics at first: his job, my promotion, a movie we'd both seen. But eventually, the conversation turned to what had happened. "I should have come to your housewarming," he said quietly, looking down at his coffee. I knew something was off about the whole situation, but I didn't want to get in the middle of it. "I'm sorry, Shirley." "Thank you for saying that," I replied, surprised by how much his acknowledgement meant to me. Dylan hesitated, then continued. "The thing is, this wasn't the first time Ashley has done something like this." "What do you mean?" "She's been manipulating situations for years, making herself look good at your expense. I've seen her do it so many times, but Mom and Dad never questioned her, so I just stayed quiet." He looked up, regret clear in his eyes. I should have said something. What followed was a conversation that shook the foundation of how I understood our family history. Dylan revealed incident after incident where Ashley had lied, twisted facts, or created drama to ensure she remained the center of attention. The birthday party in high school where my gift to our mother mysteriously disappeared, only to be found damaged in my room. The time Ashley deleted an important email about my college scholarship and claimed it must have been spam. The rumor she spread that I was too busy to attend our grandmother's 75th birthday, when in reality I had never received the invitation. "I think she feels threatened by you," Dylan said. "You're everything she's not. Independent, successful, driven. So she has to find ways to make you look bad or keep you away from the family. And our parents just believe her," I said, the familiar hurt rising again. Dylan nodded sadly. "They see what they want to see. Ashley plays the role they need her to play, the delicate one who needs their protection. And you've always been the strong one who they think doesn't need anything." We talked for hours that day, peeling back layers of family dynamics that had shaped all of our lives. For the first time, I felt truly seen by someone who had been there for all of it, who understood the context of my pain. "What are you going to do now?" Dylan asked as we prepared to leave. I considered the question carefully. "I'm going to keep building my life. My real life. Not the one I thought I needed to have to earn their approval. Beyond that, I don't know yet." Dylan hugged me before we parted. "For what it's worth, I've always admired you, Shirley. You're the strongest person I know." His words stayed with me in the weeks that followed, bolstering me as I continued my journey of self-discovery and healing. The house that had once felt tainted by my family's rejection now became a symbol of my resilience. Each room held evidence of choices I had made for myself, of a life being built on my own terms. And with each passing day, without the drama and pain of trying to fit into my family's distorted picture, I found myself growing stronger, more centered, more authentically me. 2 months after my coffee with Dylan, he called with a proposition that made my heart race. "I think it's time for Mom and Dad to hear the truth," he said. "All of it. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and this pattern has gone on too long. I want to help set up a meeting with them. Neutral territory, like a restaurant. What do you think?" My immediate instinct was to refuse. I had found peace in the separation from my family's toxicity. Did I really want to reopen that wound? "What about Ashley?" I asked. "She'll just manipulate the situation again." "Not this time," Dylan said with a determination I had never heard from him before. "I have evidence, Shirley. Screenshots of conversations, emails where she admits what she did. She doesn't know I saved them. And I'm ready to stand up for the truth, even if it means confronting our parents." After a long discussion and several days of consideration, I agreed. Not because I expected a Hollywood reconciliation or a dramatic apology, but because I wanted to reclaim my narrative. For too long, I had been defined by Ashley's lies and my parents' willingness to believe them. Whatever happened, I wanted to stand in my truth. We arranged to meet at a quiet restaurant halfway between our homes on a Sunday afternoon. Dylan arrived at my house beforehand, a folder of printed evidence in hand, his face a mixture of nervousness and resolve. "Are you sure you want to do this?" I asked him. "They might turn on you too." He nodded. "I'm sure. I can't keep watching this happen. It's not right, and deep down I think they know it." As we drove to the restaurant, I mentally prepared myself for every possible outcome, from complete rejection to grudging acknowledgement. Dr. Rivera had helped me set realistic expectations and establish boundaries for the conversation. I wouldn't argue or defend myself endlessly. I would state my truth calmly and clearly, and if they couldn't hear it, I would walk away knowing I had done what I could. My parents were already seated when we arrived, their faces showing a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. My mother had aged in the months since I had last seen her, new lines etched around her eyes. My father sat stiffly, his expression guarded. "Thank you for coming," I said as Dylan and I sat down across from them. "Dylan said it was important," my mother replied, her voice carefully neutral. "He said there were things we needed to discuss as a family." "There are," I confirmed. "Things that have been left unsaid for far too long." Our conversation started cautiously, with surface-level updates about work and health. But after the waiter took our orders, Dylan cleared his throat and opened the folder he had brought. "Mom, Dad, there's something you need to know," he began. "About what happened at Shirley's housewarming, but also about a pattern that has been going on for years." My father's face immediately hardened. "If this is about blaming your sister again—" "Please just listen," Dylan interrupted, his voice steady but insistent. "I have proof of what really happened." He laid out the evidence methodically, screenshots of the original invitation clearly showing the 3 p.m. time, the fabricated text messages Ashley had created, and most damning of all, a series of texts between him and Ashley where she had bragged about making sure Shirley knew her place. My parents' expressions changed as they reviewed each piece of evidence, from skepticism to confusion to the dawning of an uncomfortable realization. "This can't be right," my mother said weakly. "Ashley wouldn't do this." "She did," Dylan said gently. "And it's not the first time," he continued, revealing other incidents from our childhood and early adulthood where Ashley had deliberately sabotaged me or turned family members against me. With each example, he provided corroborating evidence, saved emails, text messages, photos with telling timestamps. My father sat in stunned silence, his face growing increasingly pale. My mother began to cry quietly. "Why are you showing us this?" she finally asked. "What do you want from us?" "We want you to see the truth," I said, finding my voice. "For years, I have been cast as the villain in a story I never wrote. I have been made to feel that I was not worthy of the same love and attention that Ashley received automatically. All I ever wanted was to be seen for who I really am, not who Ashley told you I was." My father looked up, meeting my eyes directly for perhaps the first time in years. "Shirley, I don't know what to say if what Dylan is showing us is true." "It is true," I said firmly. "And I think deep down you have always known something was not right. But it was easier to go along with Ashley's version of reality than to question it." A heavy silence fell over the table, broken only by the ambient sounds of the restaurant. This was the moment of truth. Would they acknowledge what they had seen, or would they find a way to dismiss it and maintain the family mythology? "I think we need to talk to Ashley," my father finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "Would you like me to call her now?" Dylan asked. "Ask her to join us?" My parents exchanged a long look, then nodded. The 30 minutes we waited for Ashley to arrive were among the most tense of my life. My parents sat in stunned silence, occasionally glancing at the evidence Dylan had provided. I focused on my breathing, reminding myself that regardless of what happened next, my worth was not dependent on their recognition. When Ashley walked into the restaurant, her confident smile faltered as she took in the serious expressions around the table. "What is going on?" she asked, sliding into the empty chair next to my mother. "Is this some kind of intervention?" "We need to talk about the housewarming party," my father said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "and some other things." Ashley's eyes darted to the folder on the table, then to Dylan, then to me. "Why are we still talking about that?" "It was months ago." "Because we have reason to believe you lied to us about what happened," my father continued, "and possibly about many other things over the years." What followed was one of the most difficult conversations of my life. Ashley initially denied everything, then tried to minimize her actions, then attempted to paint herself as the victim of our collective misunderstanding. But faced with the concrete evidence and Dylan's calm insistence on the truth, her defenses gradually crumbled. "Fine," she finally said, tears streaming down her face. "I did it. I did all of it. Are you happy now, Shirley? You finally turned everyone against me." "This is not about turning anyone against you," I said quietly. "This is about the truth finally being acknowledged. You have been manipulating this family for years, Ashley. You have deliberately hurt me over and over again, and I need to understand why." Her answer, when it came, was both simple and heartbreaking. Because it was so easy. Because everyone always believed me over you. Because I was afraid if they saw how amazing you really are, they wouldn't love me anymore. The raw honesty of her admissions stunned us all into silence. Ashley, my mother said finally, her voice breaking. We would never stop loving you. Never. But what you did was wrong. So wrong. My father reached across the table and took my hand, his eyes filled with regret. Shirley, I don't know if you can ever forgive us. We should have seen what was happening. We should have questioned things instead of always assuming the worst of you. I didn't respond immediately, letting the weight of his words settle around us. This was not a moment for easy forgiveness or quick reconciliation. This was the beginning of a much longer, more difficult conversation about trust, truth, and family. I don't know what happens next, I admitted. I have spent the last few months building a life that doesn't revolve around seeking your approval or understanding. I've found strength in that independence. But I would be open to seeing if we can build something new, something based on honesty and mutual respect. In the weeks that followed that pivotal meeting, my relationship with my family began a slow, careful reconstruction. My parents visited my house for the first time, expressing genuine admiration for what I had created. Dylan and I grew closer, our shared experience forging a bond that had never existed before. Ashley was a more complicated story. After the confrontation, she entered therapy, beginning the difficult work of examining her own insecurities and destructive patterns. Our relationship remained distant. The trust was too thoroughly broken to be quickly repaired. But there was an honesty between us now that had never existed before. 3 months after our family meeting, I hosted another housewarming party, a symbolic reset. This time, my parents and Dylan arrived early, helping with final preparations. Friends who had supported me through the darkest moments mingled with family members who were cautiously finding their way back into my life. As I looked around my living room that evening, seeing the blend of chosen and birth family, sharing food and conversation, I felt a sense of completion that had nothing to do with external validation. My home had become what I had always wanted it to be, a sanctuary of truth and authenticity, a place where I could be fully myself. The journey had been painful, but the lessons it taught me were invaluable. I learned that sometimes standing in your truth means standing alone. I learned that family is not just about blood, but about who sees you clearly and loves you anyway. Most importantly, I learned that my value does not depend on anyone else's recognition of it. Today, 2 years after that fateful housewarming party, my house has truly become a home. The garden I planted has flourished, much like my sense of self. My career has thrived, now that I no longer seek approval with every decision. And my relationships, both family and friends, are built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine connection. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to stand in our truth, even when those we love most refuse to see it. Sometimes the family we need most is the one we build for ourselves, person by person, truth by truth, day by day. Have you ever had to stand up for your truth when everyone around you refused to see it? How did you find the strength to remain true to yourself in the face of family pressure or manipulation? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone in their family struggles. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, your worth is not determined by other people's ability to recognize it.